everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. We've got another in our series of interviews with CEOs of junior mining companies making good news. One of our sponsors is Galantas Gold. They just had out some great results. I think this is one of the most undervalued junior mining companies out there. I say mining because in a few weeks, they're going to start production at their Omagh project in Ireland. And they just had some great drill results. So I think this makes up for one of the more undervalued juniors that I follow. Mario, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Allan Barry. Thanks for having me again.
Well, why don't we start with this news, Mario? I'm going to put on a share screen here, and people can see the actual news. Here it is. Galantas drills 31 grams of gold over 7 meters at Omagh project. That calculates to a metal factor of over 200 gram meters. They also had other highlights. Included in that was 106 grams of gold and 111 grams of silver over a meter. They had another hole, which they call the B lens, which is 28 meters east of the Kearney vein. It hit 73 grams of gold and 93 grams of silver over 2.2 meters in a parallel lens. And then hole FRDD 21 underground 176 hit 23 grams of gold, 16 grams of silver over 2.9 meters on their C lens, which is approximately 40 meters east of the Kearney vein. As we were getting ready to do this show, I said to Mario that this is showing the continuity of the high grade, which is crucially important. And secondly, the predictability of where to look for more of this high grade stuff. Mario, let's talk about this news. It was very good.
Yeah, no, exactly, Barry. And, if you go back a few weeks ago, we also hit another high grade zone at the Joshua vein, where it was about 13 meters over 17 grams over 13 meters. So we're starting to really understand now where these dilation zones may be occurring, and we're modeling this out. And, keep in mind, our resource was done in 2014, and we've got about 500,000 ounces in all categories at just over 7 grams. But that was before we really understood and got a handle on these dilation zones. So a lot of the drilling that we've been taking under the 4,000 meter drill program is really to test some of these dilation zones. And this model now is starting to show that we understand these dilation zones. Mario, the wide open down plunge. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Sure,
not all of our audience is a geologist, so I'm going to explain these dilation zones. In these are orogenic deposits. They're like big cracks in the earth, and that allows the fluids from up in the upper mantle to make their way close to surface. And what you want in these close to surface orogenic deposits is where the rocks open up and they can pool up the minerals or the high grade mineralization. That's what's called dilation zones, where they open up inside of these conduits, if you will. And that's exactly what makes up the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine in Australia that really put Kinross or Kirkland Lake on the map. So these dilation zones are extremely important.
Exactly. And you can now start to see in some of the images here, we've got multiple lenses now near Kearney. They're almost near vertical. And so we got the B lens, we got the C lens, we have another stringer to the west of the Kearney vein. So we're starting to really understand a little bit more what's happening here at Kearney. And again, 500 meters to the west of Kearney is the Joshua vein, where we're getting some of our highest grade hits as well. And I really want to reinforce to your listeners that this is still just the beginning. We've only had about 28,000 meters of drilling at Joshua and Kearney. And we probably have now a 5 kilometer trend. And what I'm referring to in terms of the trend, it's not the north-south. So we think these veins may dip to the north, down plunge. But along this 5 kilometer trend, we have multiple gold showings, whether it's to the east. And we announced about a month or 2 months ago some geophysical anomalies there with some historical drill holes that clearly show there is a target there. And then to the west, at the Pigeon Top, and even further west. So we've got a 5 kilometer trend. This is all controlled by Galantas. I mean, you look at Newfoundland and the gold rush there, I'll call it a gold rush. You know, you might have 20 juniors involved in the land package that we currently have. We're the first movers here. We're actually really going to be the only Irish on the island of Ireland, the only gold producer on the island. So, you know, that really puts in perspective how we are, you know, early to this game. We're not coming in late.
Well, you mentioned something there in that Newfoundland, the big gold rush there is also an orogenic gold system. And they're looking for these high-grade veins, which is exactly what you guys are talking about. But the analogy that I really like is that Swan Lake or the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine in Australia. And the reason that I say that is that's a mine, it was producing for a long time. Then they started finding these dilation zones. So you guys are actually quite a bit ahead of what's going on in Newfoundland. And yet you still have a modest valuation of 47 million. Some of those companies out there are over $1 billion valuations. Several are over several $100 million valuations. So I've mentioned before that I think that this is a really undiscovered gem, because in the hunt for orogenic deposits that look like Swan Zone, you guys are actually quite a bit advanced of some of those companies in Newfoundland with extreme valuations.
Exactly. And look, there's a lot of history in Northern Ireland why mining companies didn't venture into this area to explore. But with the peace process, you know, I think that's well behind us. And with ourselves in Dalridian, and I don't want your readers, anyone who's new to this, obviously I've mentioned this quite a few times, but you know, Dalridian was taken out for about 550 million Canadian in 2018. And that was around $1,100 an ounce. I think by the time it closed, may have been $1,300 an ounce range. But nonetheless, you know, we're at much.
Me and my audience know that story very well, because I started picking it at about 25 cents. And I picked it multiple times before the market really got excited about it. And I think that we've got another Dalradian story in the making here.
Yeah.
As you said, it was a great winner for my audience, because it ended up being bought out at close to a $500 million valuation. And you guys sit here with maybe a better project at 1/10 the valuation.
Exactly. And, you know, Dalridian now is clearly a world-class asset. It's, you know, when they got taken out with 6 million ounces at 13 grams, I'm told it's bigger than that because they continue to explore. You know, I can't say yet for sure that Galantas will have a world-class asset, but I think we have the potential for a world-class asset. And I don't know many juniors that are going to be entering production in the coming weeks could truly say that they have potential for a world-class asset. Obviously, that term is bandied about quite loosely, but I think we're only 20 miles away from Dalridian, which is, as I said, clearly a world-class asset. But you look at what we're starting to drill, you look at these veins, you look at all the mineralization that is in this district that we haven't really followed up on. Like to the north, for example, where Rio Tinto has some high-grade surface showings from their Panjar drilling. And I think there may have been a couple of shallow holes drilled by Rio Tinto with the Panjar, but they didn't understand the geology. And, you know, I'm hoping to do in the coming weeks a webinar with our geologists to really, anyone could ask them any question. We're going to go through the presentation. I might MC it. I'm not sure yet what the format will be, but I think it's really important for people to understand how much we're starting to learn about the geology here. So like when Rio Tinto looked at this in the 80s, they didn't understand that where they drilled in the north, they were probably way too shallow because, you know, these veins are all open down plunge. So they just had to drill a little bit deeper, we believe. So we're pretty excited here.
You can see a lot of what you're talking about in this image of the cross section that I have up on the screen. Right where my cursor is now, I'm showing the underground workings, and then
Yep.
you can see the series of veins. And it's worth noting that these veins, as you said, they go very deep, Mario, in these orogenic systems. They're steeply dipping. A lot of times you're only looking at a half a meter to maybe a couple meters. You guys are hitting metal factors of 210 grams of gold over 7 meters, 31 grams. You follow that hole deeper, and it hits another vein with very good grades, another vein with very good grades. And you can see what you're talking about in these cross
Yeah.
sections that you guys are sharing.
That's exactly. And you mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation about the continuity. So we are definitely getting continuity now to these veins. So you're not getting dead zones of mineralization. So we hit some high grades, some really high grades. But it's, you get some good grades. Mineralization is throughout the veins, and people that follow orogenic deposits where you don't have continuity makes mining extremely difficult because you get very nuggety style deposits. So also we get some good grades, but even where we don't get the best grades, we still get good grades. It could be 2-3 grams, don't get me wrong, but our average resource grade back in 2014 was 7 grams. But again, that resource was done before we really understood the dilation zones. And this drill program that we've been doing now with the 4,000 meters is really to test that dilation zone theory. And we're clearly hitting some really good grades now, some good widths. And you'll see some new images coming out, hopefully in some future presentations. We're working on them now to try and put on paper where we're seeing these dilation zones. And I think once the market starts to understand that, there's a lot of exploration potential even around these veins to the south. And then if we follow them down plunge, you keep bringing up Fosterville and the Swan Zone and Macassa. This is clearly a high grade system. So we just got to continue following it because knock on wood, we'll find some even better grades as we get deeper or on strike, or we find other veins that are formed below these veins or formed to the east or to the west, but they don't have a surface expression. We don't know. But that's what's exciting, I think, for Galantas.
Well, and I hope it's not lost on people that you guys are still very early in the drilling and you're already getting a continuity of high grade, and your predictability is quite exceptional because you keep on banging out hole after hole of high grade, extreme high grade bonanza zones. So you throw around the word world class, and I don't think that that's out of hand, because of the continuity of the high grade and your understanding of the gold system and the high grades that you keep on hitting.
Yep, no, exactly. And John Arthurs, who's one of our advisors, and many people view him as being I don't want to use it. He probably knows the Dalradian rocks better than most. And what's different about Galantas versus Dalradian's project is, we get massive sulfides, and our mineralization style is slightly different. We get a lot more lead versus Dalradian. But at the end of the day, what John Arthurs is telling me is you actually want to see that in these kind of districts. You want to see multiple styles of mineralization, and we're clearly getting some really high grade now. And if we can continue to drill here and identify additional veins or follow these veins down plunge and have some discoveries to the east and to the west of the main Joshua and Kearney vein, I think the market's going to be quite pleased with what we're going to be able to deliver for our shareholders.
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think what he's getting at is that when you have those various styles of mineralization, it's an indication that the system is a long-lived system. And that's why you're getting these high grades pumping into these dilation zones.
Exactly. And keep in mind, we own it all. We have 550 square kilometers of ground. That's unheard of for a junior with these kind of grades in a system. It's not just 550 square kilometers of ground that has no prospectivity. I mean, the 5 kilometers of mineralization we've identified from surface sampling, rock chip, stream sediment sampling, there's definitely mineralization there, including Rio Tinto having sampled this area in the 80s. So we know there's 5 kilometers mineralization, but this doesn't really end at 5 kilometers. As you go further west, you start to enter some different styles of mineralization, some copper, more zinc. We're really at the beginning of what we think we can find here, but I'm still focused on this project. So even though I see lots of potential on strike here, we got to finish our job, which is get this in production. Let's start generating some good cash flow here, and then continue putting some more drills in the ground to test Joshua, Kearney, and other targets on this district. And then over time, we'll continue to expand further and further afield.
Another thing that's important in these kind of zones is that the strike length of mineralization gives you a good indication of the depth potential being wide open, and that this is a very powerful mineralizing system. That I hope it's not lost on people that the Swan Zone was very thin, not very much size to it to have a lot of tons of high-grade gold. And I keep pointing back to that because what I'm hearing now is, and have been, and seeing with the drilling, is that this is shaping up to be something like a Swan Zone, and that's a company maker kind of asset.
Yeah, so hopefully with the drilling, we'll continue to identify high-grade mineralization, which we're starting to see. If we get anywhere near the Swan Zone, I was going to be extraordinarily pleased. But even if we don't get 20, 30 gram high-grade zones, I think what we're seeing, the style of mineralization, where we are, if you can get this to 7, 10 grams and get those high-grade pockets, we're going to generate some good cash flow here as we start to ramp up production from. We're planning still for this year 9,000 ounces, then 18,000 next year, and then as we continue to build our resources, we'll start to look to do stage expansions to 25, 35, 50, 75, 100. It's really going to be dependent on how much we can build, and just nice staged expansions to try and keep dilution to minimum.
Well, I'm a serious treasure hunter, so I'm a junkie for the exploration, and seeing core like I've got up on the sample, or up on the screen right now, and those cross sections really excite me, because I think that you guys are going to have no problem growing your future production from keeping ahead of your underground workings and your underground mining.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see in that image the sulfides. I mean, this is a sulfide rich system. So I think that's going to help quite a bit in terms of targeting, where some of these veins may be. In addition to that, from a mining perspective, sometimes when you get quartz veining and you don't get a lot of sulfides in there, you don't really know where the gold is. And you got to hope. In our case, we see the gold once we're in the zone. Rick, we know it's well mineralized just by the look of the core, and that's going to help as well. So we're going to know when we're taking out ore, just based on the look of it. We don't know if it's going to be 10 grams, 15 grams, 20 grams, but we know it's going to be good grades.
Yeah, well, that's pretty impressive. And have any of your geo team, have they talked about doing downhole geophysics? Because I would think that sulfides will light up with downhole geophysics.
That, funny enough, we talked about it yesterday to one of our calls, and as we start to target some of these new areas, we are going to look at doing some downhole geophysics, because the reality is when you're looking for new veins, 1, 2, 3 holes is not going to identify where these veins are. Hopefully you hit it on your first or second hole, but in terms of planning, what you want to do is exactly what you just identified, is drill some holes. If you don't hit it, the structure's there. Do some downhole geophysics, and that might help you identify where the sulfides are, and you can target these kind of holes. But that should make looking for these systems a little bit easier in our ground, because there is quite a bit of sulfides. Geophysics with gold is quite difficult, but when you got sulfides with high grade gold, it's going to make our life a little bit easier, I would hope. look, at the end of the day, we just got to get more drills and a lot more drilling done here. I think that's the key story here. We only have less than 30,000 meters of drilling with 500,000 ounce resource, and we've been hitting much higher grades with some of the drilling we've been doing over the last year from the 2014 resource. And if we can continue to deliver like that, I think we're going to do quite well for our shareholders.
Extremely well, I would add.
No, I'm pretty excited here. This is a great project.
Yeah, I can't take the smile off my face. I'm so glad that I got in early on this story, and it reminds me a lot of Dalradian. It took a fair bit of time before the market really started to understand how big it was, and then they were off to the races. And I think you guys have two catalysts coming up that could send you off to the races. One is the underground mining, which is only weeks away. And secondly, drilling ahead of that underground workings with your truth machine to find more of these. And I hope it's also not lost on people that you guys have got in a narrow area, you've got multiple veins. There's no reason that couldn't continue to find more, and that geophysics might help you with that.
Exactly, and keep in mind, 500 meters away is the Joshua vein to the west, and about, I think it's less than a kilometer away to the east is the Alkins vein, where a 2008 drill hole drilled 11 grams over 1.7 meters. So we know the system's mineralized. We just haven't been able to, in the past, have the capital to drill this. And you mentioned Dalradian. I think now, because Dalradian's proven a high-grade resource, hopefully our time scale for the market to really understand what we have here is going to be much shorter than it took Dalradian to get to their position with production and continued drill results. I think the market's going to pay attention to us a lot sooner, and that's my job to make sure that people are keeping their eyes on us. And to Eric Sprott, to Mel Court, the exercise warrants early, extraordinary supportive shareholders. That's saying a lot in terms of who we have as our shareholder base.
Yeah, and those guys are probably seeing the same thing I am. Continuity is king, and we hear grade is king, but continuity is king. Grade is queen, and the continuity already of what is good, but even in between those zones, you've got the potential to find more as you get deeper, because some of these veins will be blind. And they don't make their way as far close to surface. But look at what happened in Red Lake. They had to go down 1,000 meters before they found the jewelry boxes. And from 1,000 meters to over 2,000 meters, it made Gold Corp one of the lowest cost producers in the business. And so, that if there's two kings, it's continuity and low cost. And you guys are showing that that's the potential here. And it's not just pie in the sky promotion. You're showing it with the truth machine. The drilling is showing you.
Yeah. And that's why I really want to get this asset in production, as you said, the coming weeks. I think that's going to be a big catalyst for shareholders, and people finally see that this asset is going to be producing gold. Because let's not forget, it did produce about 20,000 ounces with open pit, and the plan was then to go underground, and that's where the capital got tight. But we're in a different gold price environment. And in addition to that, now we're seeing some great grades that, I'm really confident we're going to generate some good returns for our shareholders. And we just got to continue drilling and keep our heads down and plowing forward. But, we got support of great shareholders. I do see people tell me, there's not a lot of liquidity in the shares. There is, if people are willing to sell at much higher prices, obviously, but no one wants to sell their shares at, the 60-cent range Canadian, because why would you, right? So, you're just people, if they want exposure, there's just not a lot of shares out there that are going to be free at 60 cents. And if you can get some, some people are scooping them up, and, hopefully we can continue to deliver some great shareholder value for in the coming months and years as we continue to plow forward with our plan.
I could easily see that ahead of you guys. And, it's another thing you mentioned, that the past production, that was in a clay kind of material. Where you're getting all these great results is from the hard rock. And you can see that in the drill core. So that's a lot of what, why you've got this predictability of high grade.
Yeah, look, I get the fascination with Bitcoin mining and this cryptocurrency, I'm particularly not a fan of it because I still don't fully understand the true value of it. But that being said, the ability to hit these kind of grades, you saw that one image you had, there was 200 grams over that sample. This is true mining. Right? This is what we're working for, and there's no satisfaction. Someone mines a Bitcoin and you spend all that money mining a Bitcoin. It's there. It's just a matter of doing these algorithms to get your Bitcoin, but you can never find a hidden Bitcoin. But the satisfaction of finding these kind of discoveries. I'm a finance guy, but I think now I'm realizing more and more I'm an exploration junkie. There's nothing like treasure hunting. And when you find the treasure, and we're hopefully we'll continue to find more and more of these kind of treasure boxes in this district, that I think is going to be exciting for us.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction here, and I think in the past, when I used to go to the PDAC, Gold Corp had these tremendous specimens of their underground workings, and the rock was just riddled with gold. And I think you guys are going to have some of that in front of you. And when you see that, Mario, I don't think they're going to be able to hold you on a chair for very long.
Well, look, I'd love to be in that position to be able to bring those kind of specimens to PDAC. So, knock on wood that we start to see those.
Well, I can make those predictions because I'm just a guy looking at it from the outside in, but I think you're going to see some of that, and your geologists are all going to be very excited. It's got all the hallmarkings geologically of those kind of past successes, and good on you guys, Mario. Keep on doing the great work you guys and your team are doing.
Well, I'll let you know. We'll send out some information once we're able to get this webinar organized and ask all the questions that are geologically related and significant to this area, because I think we've got a real smart geological team here that really understands the system in this district.
Well, I'll definitely be attending, and I'll invite others to attend, and I'll probably be asking a few questions.
That'd be great. No, I look forward to that.
Awesome, Mario. I'm going to close it off. Was there anything you wanted to leave us with?
No, that's good. Let's just, to all your listeners and readers, just continue paying attention. I think we got an interesting story here at Galantas, and I mentioned earlier on, this is just the beginning. Keep in mind, this company was never really had access to capital. We got our first injection in May of last year, and we're still working through that financing. And we're about to enter production. So I think in the year we've done a great job of rehabilitating the mine. You'll see some pictures again of the before and after with the equipment. There's a tremendous amount of work has been done here behind the scenes, and this management team we have at site has done a fantastic job, not only on the exploration front, but getting us in the position here. And we really couldn't be in this position without the smart management team and that we have at site, because they really understand how to operate on the island and in Northern Ireland.
Awesome. So I'm going to close it off by saying, I started this presentation by saying that this is one of the most cheapest valuation junior mining companies that I can find out there. I kept on talking about the Swan Zone that made Kirkland Lake into one of the lowest cost producers of gold on the planet. I think that they have the potential, the realistic potential based on drilling, that they are looking at something like that. And with the $47 million valuation, these are the kind of discoveries that make billion-dollar plus companies. So it's a tremendously undervalued story. I invite you to, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions, and do your homework. Check out their presentations, check out their cross sections, check out the core that they're showing, and also check out that webinar when they'll have their geological brain trust talking. And I think you'll see why I can't take the smile off my face when I think of Galantas. I think Mario's in the same boat, and with a lot of catalysts ahead of them, including production in the next coming weeks and a lot more drilling. So stay tuned for more of these interviews with Galantas, because I can easily see a lot more in their near-term news. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.